Welcome to Empires in English. Let's unlock your future. Start thinking and living in English. Subscribe and let's begin.
Why is it that after years of studying English, taking grammar classes, reading books, and memorizing vocabulary lists, so many intermediate learners still feel stuck when they try to speak? They hesitate. They overthink. They pause every 3 seconds. They feel like their brain is working in slow motion. If this happens to you, I want you to know something very important right now. It is not because you lack intelligence. It is not because you don't know enough grammar rules. And it is not because you don't have a talent for languages. In 99% of cases, learners are stuck because they have unknowingly developed silent, destructive habits that are actively blocking their fluency. Think of it like driving a car with the handbrake pulled up. You can press the gas pedal as hard as you want, you can work as hard as you want, but the car is barely going to move because the brake is holding you back. Today, we are going to release that handbrake. We are going to break down 5 extremely common, silent habits that are ruining your English fluency, destroying your confidence, and holding you back from speaking naturally. And for every single habit, I am going to give you a clear, practical exercise that you can use to fix it immediately. Grab a pen and a notebook, sit somewhere quiet, and let's go through these 5 habits one by one. Let's begin with habit number 1. The habit of perfectionist editing before you speak. This is the absolute biggest fluency killer in the world. What does perfectionist editing look like in real life? Imagine you are in a meeting, or a casual conversation, or an interview. Someone asks you a question. Before you open your mouth, your brain immediately enters editing mode. You construct a sentence in your mind, and then you start running a mental checklist. Is this the right verb tense? Should I use present perfect or simple past? Did I use the correct preposition? Is my pronunciation going to sound stupid? By the time you finish checking all those rules in your head, 3 things have happened. First, 5 to 10 seconds of awkward silence have passed. Second, your anxiety has doubled. And third, the conversation has moved on to a completely different topic. Here is the fundamental truth about human conversation. Speech happens in real time. Perfectionism and real-time speech cannot coexist. When you speak your native language, you do not construct perfect sentences in your head before speaking. You start talking before you even know how the sentence is going to end. You adjust as you go. You make small mistakes, you correct yourself, or you simply ignore them and keep moving. Native English speakers make grammatical mistakes all the time. They use filler words, they restart sentences, they use incorrect subject-verb agreement when speaking fast, and nobody cares. Because in real-world communication, clarity and speed are far more important than grammatical perfection. So, how do you break the habit of perfectionist editing? You use the 3-second rule. The 3-second rule states that whenever someone asks you a question or whenever you want to contribute an idea, you must start producing English speech within 3 seconds. You are not allowed to build a full sentence in your mind first. You open your mouth, start with a simple opening phrase, and let your brain build the rest of the thought while you are already speaking. What opening phrases can you use to buy time naturally? That's a great question. Well, from my perspective, to be honest, I was just thinking about that. You know, it's interesting because look at what those phrases do. They give your physical voice momentum immediately, while giving your brain 2 or 3 extra seconds to organize the main content of your thought without any awkward silence. Now let's examine habit number 2. The habit of learning single words instead of language chunks. If you open the notebook of a typical English learner, what do you usually see? You see long lists of isolated vocabulary words with their native language definitions written next to them. Word number 1. Reluctant. Definition. Unwilling. Word number 2. Accomplish. Definition. Achieve. Word number 3. Deteriorate. Definition. Worsen. This approach to vocabulary learning is a massive trap. When you memorize single, isolated words, you force your brain to perform extra mental calculations every time you want to speak. When you want to use the word reluctant, your brain has to figure out which preposition goes with reluctant. Is it reluctant to do something, or reluctant for doing something, or reluctant at doing something? While you are trying to assemble the puzzle pieces of grammar around that single word, your speech slows down to a crawl. Fluent speakers do not store individual words in their memory bank. They store language chunks. A language chunk is a group of 2, 3, or 4 words that naturally go together and are remembered as a single unit. For example, instead of learning the single word reluctant, you learn the chunk. Be reluctant to change. Instead of learning the single word decision, you learn the chunk. Make a final decision. Instead of learning the single word opinion, you learn the chunk. In my humble opinion. Look at the difference. When you pull a language chunk out of your memory, the grammar is already pre-assembled. The preposition is already there. The verb-noun agreement is already correct. You don't have to think about grammar because the chunk does the heavy lifting for you. Here is your daily exercise to replace single words with chunks. Whenever you read an article or listen to a video and find a new word you want to learn, never write down just that single word in your notebook. Always write down the complete 3-word phrase that surrounds it. If you find the word crucial, don't write down crucial equals very important. Write down the chunk. Play a crucial role in. Then create 2 sentences using that entire chunk out loud. Technology plays a crucial role in modern education. Communication plays a crucial role in leadership. This single shift in how you collect vocabulary will double your speaking speed within 30 days. Now let's move to habit number 3. The habit of passive consumption without active output. How do most intermediate English learners spend their study time? They watch 3 hours of English Netflix shows with subtitles on. They listen to English podcasts while commuting. They watch YouTube videos about grammar tips. Then, at the end of the week, they wonder why their speaking hasn't improved at all. There is a huge psychological difference between passive consumption and active output. Passive consumption means your brain is simply absorbing information. Your eyes are reading, your ears are listening, but your speaking muscles and memory retrieval networks are completely dormant. It is like sitting on your couch watching 5 hours of professional basketball tutorials on YouTube, and then expecting to step onto the court and play like a professional athlete. Watching someone else play basketball will not build your physical muscles. Listening to someone else speak English will not build your vocal muscles. If 90% of your study time is spent listening and reading, and only 10% is spent physically speaking out loud, your output capacity will always lag far behind your input capacity. How do you balance the equation? You implement the 1-to-1 input-output rule. For every 10 minutes you spend consuming English content, whether it is a YouTube video, a podcast, or an article, you must spend 10 minutes producing out loud English output based on that content. What does this look like in practice? If you watch a 5-minute YouTube video explaining a news event, pause the video as soon as it ends. Set a timer on your phone for 5 minutes. Turn off the screen, look at the wall, and speak out loud, summarizing everything you just understood from the video in your own words. In this video, the speaker explained that the main point of the discussion was One thing I found really interesting was, if you hit a point where you don't know how to explain a detail, that is fantastic. That tells you exactly where your output gap is. You go back, check the video for 10 seconds, learn the phrase, and say it out loud again. When you match every unit of input with an equal unit of output, you convert passive knowledge into active speaking ability immediately. Now let's address habit number 4. The habit of using subtitles as a visual crutch. Subtitles are one of the most addicting traps for intermediate English learners. You turn on a movie or a video in English. You want to practice your English, but you feel slightly nervous that you won't understand everything, so you turn on English subtitles. What happens the moment subtitles appear at the bottom of the screen? Your human brain automatically takes the path of least resistance. Reading is mentally easier for the brain than processing spoken audio. So, without even realizing it, your eyes lock onto the bottom of the screen, and you spend the next 2 hours reading English instead of listening to English. When you rely on subtitles, you never train your ears to decode fast, connected, native speech. Native speakers do not pronounce words clearly like a dictionary. They connect sounds together. What are you going to do becomes, what ya gonna do? I should have told him becomes, I shoulda told him. When you read subtitles while listening, your brain sees the clear text, what are you going to do, while hearing, what ya gonna do, and it relies on the text to understand. But when you enter a real-world conversation with a coworker, a boss, or a friend, there are no subtitles floating in the air in front of their face. You freeze because your ears haven't trained to process connected sounds without visual support. Here is the 3-step strategy to break your subtitle addiction without getting overwhelmed. Step 1. The double watch method. Choose a short, 3-minute video clip. Watch it the first time with English subtitles on so your brain fully grasps the context, storyline, and vocabulary. Step 2. Turn off subtitles. Watch the exact same 3-minute clip a second time with subtitles completely turned off. Because your brain already knows the context from the first viewing, it isn't panicked about missing the story. It can dedicate 100% of its cognitive energy to matching the spoken audio to the meaning. Step 3. The 30-second audio replay. Whenever you encounter a sentence where the speaker's words sound like a jumbled, blurry mess, rewind the video by 10 seconds, close your eyes, and listen to that specific sentence 3 times without looking at any text. Listen for where the words link together. Notice how the consonant at the end of one word attaches to the vowel at the beginning of the next word. By removing the visual crutch of subtitles, you force your brain to build real auditory decoding networks, making real-world conversations infinitely easier to navigate. Now let's examine habit number 5. The habit of comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. This is the psychological habit that destroys more learning journeys than any grammar mistake ever could. You go onto social media, or you attend a professional meeting, or you listen to a colleague who speaks flawless, elegant, effortless English. You watch them speak without hesitation, using advanced vocabulary and perfect pronunciation. And what do? You immediately compare yourself to them. You think, look at how easy it is for them. I have been studying for years and I still stumble over simple sentences. I am just bad at languages. I will never speak like that. This comparison trap creates deep feelings of inadequacy, embarrassment, and self-doubt. And what happens when you feel self-doubt? You stop speaking. You stay quiet in meetings. You avoid opening your mouth because you don't want to look inferior. Here is what you are forgetting when you compare yourself to that fluent speaker. You are seeing their public result, but you did not see their private process. You did not see the thousands of mistakes they made in private. You did not see the hundreds of hours they spent feeling confused, frustrated, and awkward. You did not see the years of steady, silent effort they put in when nobody was watching. Fluency is not an innate talent that some people are born with and others are denied. Fluency is simply the accumulation of hours spent interacting with the language out loud. Comparing your progress to someone else is completely illogical because everyone starts from a different background, has different daily routines, and has spent a different number of total hours producing the language out loud. The only person you should ever compare your English to is the version of yourself from 6 months ago. Ask yourself, do I know more language chunks today than I did 6 months ago? Am I slightly more aware of my habits today than I was 6 months ago? If the answer is yes, you are winning. Progress in language learning is not a straight upward line. It is a series of plateaus followed by sudden breakthroughs. When you stop comparing yourself to others, you release the emotional burden of shame, and you reclaim your energy to focus on what actually matters, practicing out loud every single day. To consolidate everything we have broken down today, let's review the 5 fluency-destroying habits and their immediate solutions. Habit 1. Perfectionist editing before speaking. Fix. Apply the 3-second rule. Start speaking within 3 seconds using simple opening phrases. Habit 2. Learning isolated single words. Fix. Learn 3-word language chunks where grammar is already pre-assembled. Habit 3. Passive consumption without active output. Fix. Apply the 1-to-1 rule. Match every 10 minutes of listening with 10 minutes of out loud speaking. Habit 4. Subtitle addiction. Fix. Use the double watch method. Watch content once with subtitles for context, then turn them off to train your ears. Habit 5. Comparing yourself to fluent speakers. Fix. Stop comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. Focus entirely on your own daily output. If you take these 5 corrections and implement them starting today, you will feel an immediate weight lifted off your shoulders when you speak. English is not an exam to be passed. English is a tool to connect with human beings, share your ideas, build your career, and express who you are. If you found value in this deep breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more real-world English strategies, and leave a comment below. Which of these 5 habits has been holding you back the most? Thank you for watching. Release that handbrake, keep practicing out loud, and I will see you in the next video.